From the Middle is proud to be a founding member of Odd Pods Media. Hey, everybody. The three of us are back for episode number 294, if you can believe it, of From the Middle. If you're just joining us for the first time or have just stumbled upon our podcast, we are a comedy, culture, entertainment, and interview-style podcast, and your hosts are three middle-class guys living in the middle chapters of their lives in the middle of America with points of view somewhere in the middle. And while we never get political, we do just kind of touch on the fringes of it in this episode. You know, our country is really divided these days on topics that really matter. Chief amongst these, Disney movies. Where do you stand on all these remakes of Disney movies? Should they be happening? Should they not be happening? Is it just a money grab, or are they just trying to reset the IP? We talk about lots of different stuff that we're streaming, and then I drag things down in the second half of the episode and get a little bit quasi sort of beginning to sort of maybe a little bit get political without getting political. And so we end up having a really fun discussion on why we all just need to get along. Times are tough. It's a crazy world out there, but it's probably not as bad as everybody's saying it is. Go sit by a creek, listen to this podcast with a picnic or a book, and enjoy.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
Welcome back. It's good to have you back. I know Kendall and I had a great time last week talking about all kinds of things that we won't reference specifically because people can just go back and listen to that one.
That's
when they can.
That's what it is.
So we want to make sure people, all kinds of people, have a chance to go back and listen first. So with that, how's your week going, Kendall?
My week is doing great. I'm laughing because people on YouTube see that there's a tile up for Corey Hubble, but Corey Hubble is nowhere to be found, and that is because we had some technical difficulties, but we decided screw it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, I'm the lone Hubble-yero right now.
Yeah. So, no, I'm doing swell. Hey, the other Hubble brothers back.
Hey, champ.
All right. Is that any better?
I don't know if it's better, but it's louder than it was.
Okay. Well, we'll take it.
Okay.
Hey,
it sounds
guys.
a little bit like you're on a telephone, but that's okay.
All right.
People have to deal, and they'll understand.
Mm-hmm.
We are not highbrow here. I suspect
In the
our
meantime,
listeners
I'll
are
get
not
my
either.
microphone situation figured out. My apologies to the listener.
It's okay.
Singular.
Yeah, Jonathan understands.
He gets it. Okay, what are you guys talking about?
Last week.
Cool.
We were talking about how we're not going to reference anything specific to last week because we want to give people a chance to listen first so that they can tune in at a wink at a later time. So
Yeah.
we had fun. I think Kendall and I had a lot of fun. We had we always seem to find a great way to talk about food, and like, what's the saying? Slice it however many ways to Sunday or whatever. Like we will just keep going back to the food discussion and always seem to have a great time. And I love that about chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks. It's food is one of those things. There's a few of those things where it's like I always have thoughts, and I just usually don't let them come out of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I'm with you guys, I feel like I can spill all of my brain.
You can spill the beans, you know?
Yeah.
Spill the corn chowder. As the guy who creates the graphics, I do always need to know enough to be able to put at least 5 images into the YouTube thumbnail, and most of them were food related. So that is as much as I.
You were asking us for other things that we talked about, and I think Dylan and I independently were just sitting back on our phones on our couches going, nope, there really wasn't anything else.
That was it.
That was, we talked an hour about corn chowder. So good luck,
Sweet.
graphics guy.
Here's different angles of corn chowder. Oh, but it's good to see you guys. It's good to be back. It's on the road for work. I did a weird one. Normally my gigs are in the middle of weeks where I don't have to travel over weekends to prepare for them. But this was an early Monday morning meeting in Seattle, which meant fly in on Saturday night, prep all day on Sunday because I have to sort of build out the spaces, and then do the workshop on Monday and Tuesday with Wednesday travel home. So kind of a funky one. Made it hard for me to record. 3 hours time difference. Blah blah blah. So thanks for still crushing it with the episode. We're doing killer numbers on that one. I think people are voting with their listens and saying it's time to boot Corey off the show.
No, we'll see. Yeah. Well, you guys don't know this yet because we haven't talked about it, but I'm on vacation next week.
Woo!
So
Let's go.
You'll see. We're doing Myrtle Beach again for the second year in a row for spring break, which would be great.
Is next week the week that your kids have off instead of this week?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Our kids, I think most places had their spring break either last week or this week. And then it was the same deal last year. Our spring break is a week after, which is fine because that means that like spring break at Myrtle Beach will be over for everybody else. And
that's right.
We'll come rolling in. It'll be a little warmer too, I think, which will be good.
Fantastic.
For that area. Speaking of spring, March Madness is in full swing. Are you guys into the March Madness this year? At all?
Normally I am, but I've not watched more than a few minutes, and I almost always do a bracket. In fact, the last several years, I'm not implying that I'm so into it that I host a bracket, but I am into it enough that I've hosted a work bracket for like a lot of the sales team. And we do like gift cards for the winners. I think it's always fun to do because there's typically more than 20. The top 3 slots get gift cards, and then the person with the worst bracket always gets a gift card too, because you really got to earn the worst bracket on the whole board. That takes some effort. So, but I didn't even fill one out this year.
Wow.
I'm not even in one. I've watched less than minutes. So I'm really out of the loop, and I feel a little sad about that, but I'd love your take on what's going on.
Well, I love that you asked. I was going to say, I love that you asked. It's very sweet of you to pretend that I care, or at least give me the chance to change my ways. No, I couldn't care less. I do know that Lady Gaga's song "Abracadabra" seems to be the theme song of the coverage. Sherry is all about it. She has multiple brackets. I think she's number 2 in her organization's points. She takes it very seriously. Normally, you guys will recall in years past, I take the kids away for that first weekend. This year, she said, you know what? Like, that was really more for when the kids were small and required a lot more of my energy and time. And when I was a lot more tired caring for them, they're older now. They require way less. Like, it'd actually be fun if you guys hung out. So, like, I sit in the recliner next to her while she watches March Madness, and I play Pokemon games on my phone. That's what happens.
Well, there you have it. So I've got my mom's side of the family, all of the extended family over there. They do a whole online bracket thing where you can submit 2 brackets for each the men's and the women's March Madness tournament. And I think I'm like, of all of the, like, I'm tied for like 12th or something in the men's side. I'm first currently on the women's side, one of my brackets over there. And then our family, we started this last year where the 5 of us each fill out a paper bracket, old school style. And I keep track of them and score them. And then whoever wins gets to choose dinner. at the thing. And then also this year, I instituted we do a Sweet 16 bracket, right? So once the Sweet 16 is established, you do a new bracket at that point. And so we did that since it's called the Sweet 16. We call it the dessert bracket. And so the winner of that one chooses dessert. And so we're going to have a big family meal somewhere, wherever anybody wants to go, whoever wins it. And then someone else gets to choose dessert. Or maybe it's the same person who gets to choose dessert. We'll find out.
That's fun.
So that's what's going on there. It's been kind of there hasn't really been a breakout Cinderella story or team or coach that has gone deep into the.
Was Colorado
into the
State
thing.
making a bit of a one, and then they just lost? I think that was one of the
Yeah,
close
I mean,
ones.
there was a couple stories in there in the first round, but I mean, there's like no major upsets. Top seeds are doing well, so we'll put it that way.
The John Calipari and what's his head, the coach friendship, the two Italian guys, they had a thing.
Yeah. That's I don't remember now who that is.
Actually, Sherry was blanking on the one guy's name, and I remembered John Calipari, and I go, "Are you turned on right now that I knew who you were talking about?" And that was actually what was another thing that happened? Oh, Blake Griffin was one of the commentators, and she couldn't remember his name.
Oh yeah, no, he's doing.
And I go, "You remember Blake?" She goes, "Oh, what's his name again?" I'm like, "Blake Griffin." She goes, "Yeah, that's right." I go, "You turned on right now."
Well,
and then she goes,
he's made a name for himself in the comedy world.
Sure. So then she goes, "Yeah, but who did he play for?" And I go, "A team with blue and red in their logo." I couldn't remember who exactly, but I knew it was blue and red.
Most of his career was for the Detroit Pistons, baby.
And the Clippers, right?
Yeah, I think so. He left at some point, which was one of those Pistons fans are like, "Yeah, we get it. We understand."
Yeah.
It was fun.
I would too if I were you, I guess.
Yeah, if I had the chance. I'd get out now. No. So that's been fun / is fun. Michigan made their way to the Sweet 16 after missing the tournament for 3 years straight.
Big Ten, a little bit of a showing in the
they poached a coach
year.
from they poached a Cinderella story coach from last year. Michigan did, and so his first year into the Big Ten, and he won the Big Ten tournament, and then now he's on the Sweet 16. So
one way to do it.
Yeah, that's basketball news for you guys.
Sounds fun and tasty. So I look forward to hearing about your food choices from your bracket winners.
Yeah.
What else is going on?
I feel like I've watched a bunch of stuff because we haven't talked about that in a while, but I certainly don't want to cut into other things that people have done or experienced.
It's fine. And you know what? Maybe it's our first 20-minute episode.
I don't think it'll have to be that short. This feels like a great time to hear from somebody. No, just kidding. But seriously, we've talked so much about food lately and going places, and I had like a bit of a backlog of things that I was watching. So we can totally pivot to that if you guys want. Because I don't know if you're watching a bunch right now too.
I'm down for whatever for this weekly hang. There's no rules.
Let's start that. Yeah, because a lot of times it feels like we've got follow up on some of these things, but then we're rushing it because we're coming up on the end. And
yeah, that's true.
Let's front load some of it.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I can talk about a few things. So one thing that's kind of been interesting to me is the sort of backlash to any and all sequels that Disney is making. And there's a whole political thing and the woke, and I'm not talking about any of that, but there seems to be some, like, if it's a sequel or if it's a live action remake, there seems to be an almost instant negative reaction online to like, nobody asked for this, nobody wants it, it's going to be bad, whatever. And it's fine if people feel that way. I'm always very much in the camp of like, you do you, spend your money where you want. If you don't want to see it, just don't go see it, whatever. But I also, there's the meme where it's like just let people enjoy things. So while people can say whatever they want and not go pay to see whatever they want or don't want to see, it's just like sometimes just let people go watch a thing and enjoy a thing if they want. And it doesn't mean that my expectations are always that something's going to be better or that it's going to be terrible. I think we've talked about many times how we'll just take things sort of at surface value. Are we entertained by it? Yes or no. If yes, great. Doesn't mean there's not flaws in things. And so I say that because I've recently watched Moana 2. And I think, Corey, you talked about this one. You guys thought it was fine.
Mhm.
But Moana was obviously a pretty big, it's kind of like Frozen, like pretty big following on the first one. And I watched the second Enchanted movie, uh, Patrick Dempsey and Amy Adams, called Disenchanted. So two sequels to very well received Disney movies, and they were both fine. They were totally fine. They had good music in them. Is the music maybe as good as the first one's? Probably not, but totally fine. And maybe a little bit of our eh, childhood is what's sort of ringing in my ears of like thinking of all the really bad direct to DVD, like direct to VHS, really bad sequels, and knowing that even as a kid, I think we probably thought that those weren't very good. These still clearly feel like an effort has been made. It doesn't feel like it's been phoned in. It doesn't. So I'm kind of tired and annoyed of this overreaction. And I think a part of it is also the antithesis to like what we're trying to do with our show is not to be the clickbaity, everything is amazing or awful. It's like adding a little bit of nuance to the discussion that like a lot of things kind of fall in the middle and we just want to weigh. Yeah. So I don't know. I was thinking a lot about that because I happened to watch two sequels. Feel free to jump in and then I can talk about the movies themselves.
Well, I always thought that those memes, the whole the remakes nobody asked for, applied more to the live action remakes of classic 2D animated classics, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast. Now the latest is Snow White. Um, and the case there being people hypothesize that that's actually just Disney's effort to reset the intellectual property of those stories and characters. So, like, things become, when the things are so old, they become public domain. Hey, if we reset Aladdin, Aladdin's probably even too recent in and of itself. So, like, think back to the Cinderellas and the
Mhm.
like some of Disney's first 2D animated classics. I think I always thought anyway that people were talking more about those.
I think it's both, to your point. I do think people are talking, I think they throw it all under the cash grab thing. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
the live action remakes of old animated movies and the second, third, fourth, fifth version of Toy Story 1 through 5 and a second, because the criticism is often, why can't you make a new original story? Why do you have to just make sequels to everything? So I think it's a yes and. I think they're talking
Mm,
about both.
Mhm.
yeah. Because I think I've looked this up before, and I think technically it doesn't actually reset any of the intellectual property. You're really just resetting its relevance to a younger generation. Like, them redoing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that we grew up on in the, late 80s, early 90s was an effort to go, hey, those boys that we had back in those days are now dads. And they probably have some kids that would love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's reset Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again for a new era. And then Nickelodeon had its third or fourth iteration of the Turtles.
Yeah.
Strawberry Shortcake made a comeback for the people who grew up on that in the late 60s, early 70s. And it's like, let's bring that back because those moms probably have girls now that they would be like, oh my gosh, I grew up with this, but it's like a new version, right?
Yeah.
So more that than, oh, we're going to lose this property if we don't create the movie that nobody wanted,
Yeah.
and like kick it off again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point. And like, I don't know why people treat it like it's an all or nothing. Well, it's a cash grab. Well, they are a business, so they do want cash. Uh, well, but I thought they were storytellers. Well, they also employ a lot of storytellers who do genuinely want to tell stories and also like paychecks to support themselves. So, like, I don't, why people have to boil it down to like Disney wants to make money and can also want to try to tell stories and can also fail at that sometimes and can succeed at that sometimes. And all of those things can be true all at the same time.
But being level-headed isn't fun.
No, no, because nuance makes people's brains hurt. They just want an energy drink and to hate something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, it would also be fair for someone to not like it and then say, hey, I didn't like it, right?
Sure. Yeah. And that's kind of how I started. Like, people are allowed to not like things and not want to go see things if they don't want. But also sometimes I just feel just let people enjoy it that are enjoying it. If you don't like it, you can say you don't like it, that's fine. But I think people get tired of hearing people who just constantly hate things.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's just a tiring person, anyways. And so the problem is with the internet, and I do the same thing with comedy. It somehow feels like this anonymous body of people who are commenting is somehow always the same and different person all at the same time. When like person A could like 9 out of 10 things, but I see them hating on the one, and I'm annoyed because I'm seeing the person hating on the thing. And like in my head, it's always the same person hating on things.
Yeah.
It's not. That just gets tiring. And I don't know if anybody else feels that way. And at some point the onus is on me to just withdraw from any sort of discussion. Because what I've decided is I don't really care. I like the discussion of the content. I don't really care anymore whether people actually liked it or not. And I know those overlap a lot. Like, but the rating or the thumbs up, thumbs down is less interesting to me. But if people want to talk about the actual thing, I really like the cinematography in this scene where they did this, or the score at this point was a callback to the original 1937 Cinderella, and they played the tune again, but they did it with that's the stuff that I find more interesting.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I'm looking for that, but finding the complaints, and I'm getting tired of the complaints.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, I haven't watched a kid related Disney thing on purpose in a very long time. So I don't have much of an opinion one way or the other. I hear the same chatter that you guys hear, and I mean, most recently it's Snow White, and most of what I hear about Snow White is negative, and that's like even like from a political level, it's negative, but even the apolitical people are giving it negative thoughts as well for various reasons and decisions that they've made in the film. And
Yeah, because at this
things like
moment in
that.
time, and I don't really know any of the controversy around the new Snow White. I mean, I've heard a little bit, but I don't really know. But it's currently like the worst rated film of all time. Really? Is it really the worst rated? The worst
Right. Yeah.
of all time from users? Come on. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But that's the whole online thing with like everything's a 5 star or a 1 star.
Exactly.
There's nothing in between. So like if there's any level of anything people don't like, or it has Disney's name on it, they're like 1 star, worst film ever.
Right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it is. You have the Disney haters and the Disney apologists, and they're all, and if the overall rating is anywhere between 1 star or 5 stars, it's because there's been about half 1 stars and half 5 stars.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going in and saying, "I'll give it about a 3.5."
Right. Yeah.
Nobody's doing that.
Not really. And to be fair, that's almost anything, even outside of Disney properties like Marvel and Star Wars. Like the DC Universe films are all going to have a lot of 1 or 5 stars, or you could move into any popular IP that has repeating content, and you're going to have fans and then people just bashing on it. So
the hate is also a signal of relevance, right? Like it would arguably be worse to not like. I remember I've heard multiple comics from the Comedy Store talk about how Pauly Shore's mom, Mitzi, who ran the place, she would say, you're really on the come up because people will really start hating you. About half the people will really start hating you, and about half the people will really start liking you. What you don't want is them not talking about you at all.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like I think of that when I hear you guys talk about some of that stuff. Like you're going to force people into one side or the other, and you're in part of the discussion. So
yeah, I just imagine it like in my head, It's an all white, stark white room with somebody just yelling loudly about a movie, and I'm the only person in there, and then I just decide to leave. And then they're like, "Hey, are you listening to me complain about this?" And that's just how I feel with the comments. So, is anyone hearing me upset about this thing? Like, I'm done. If you want to have an actual discussion about what makes the movie, and woven into that are things that you didn't prefer or you preferred or whatever, that's fine. But the wholesale loud, 1 star, 5 star, this is the most incredible Disney film of all time or whatever, or the worst Disney film of all time. Okay.
That's actually why I enjoy watching things that are being watched by a lot of other people, because you can find those corners of the internet where people are actually interested in like breaking it down and like what's really working about it and the cinematography and the music. Take Severance, for example. That just finished its second season. It's one of the things I was going to talk about later. Like, I've got a bunch of art friends from art school in my news feed talking about this show and using words like perfect, masterpiece, incredible, like very hyperbolic language. But like when you start talking about why and how they're doing certain things in the show, and Adam Scott's killing it in that show, and like that's fun to be a part of the discussion about what's really working with that. I think I'm a little late to the game on this one, but our friend Brad, who's been on the show, and then my daughter Lily was like, "Dad, seriously, you need to watch Arcane on Netflix." Oh my gosh. And now I'm finally like really diving deep into Arcane and going, "Oh, I get." And I remember people being like, "This show is like a painting. Every scene is a work of art. The textures, the colors, the storytelling, the world building, the fantasy, the fun, it's just all there. This show has everything." So I would have liked to gone back in time when it was like appointment television and people were watching episode at a time to talk about that and ignore those people in that big white room going, "Aren't you listening to me? Me.
But I'm allowed to
Hello?
complain about it. It's my right.
Hello?"
It sure
Like,
is.
let's talk about why it's working, and let's have creative discussions on like what's not, and like we're not just trying to be purely critical. Like, let's say what could they do better, break it down in like a fun way that we're all going to glean something from, not just like a hate for hating's sake. Anyway,
Yeah.
now I'm
Yeah.
pontificating.
You could also just watch movies and decide in your own head whether or not you liked it, and then say, "Oh, that was good,"
Yeah,
and then
not need to
that
talk
wasn't.
about it.
Not need to talk about it. Not need to try to find other people talking about it. It's just go teach your kid how to ride a bike after that. Like,
I was going to say, but
the-
when everybody and their brother has a podcast and we have to have points of view on
Yeah,
these
but-
things.
Kendall, my counterpoint to that would be like, or you could just go buy a pocket knife and not research it for 3 weeks. Like, just pick one off the shelf at Walmart.
that's
and it's okay.
yeah. No, I get it. It's
Because
there's a hobbyist aspect to what we're talking
Yeah.
about here. I know.
Yeah, but you're totally right. And I think what I find myself, the line that I can draw in the sand for myself, to your point, Kendall, to have a healthy balance between just watching it and when I like to deep dive into the thing because I find it interesting. Some stuff is very low stakes and I don't need to know more about it. Or if it's not part of a cinematic universe, it's not part of a whole bigger thing. It's just, here's just a movie. I don't need to go deep dive the behind the scenes of Disenchanted. It was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Moana too. Those are fine. I mean, technically there's 2 Moanas, so you could, if you wanted to deep dive the culture and the making of or whatever, that'd be great. But to me, it's because of the things that I'm into that I want to end up knowing more about. Maybe you get really into Severance because there's a really cool story. It was based on a book, and now you want to read the books and learn more about the author who wrote it. And, so it's like what feels high stakes, what is part of a bigger story, and is it something you're really into? Might trigger you wanting to deep dive the thing versus. If I don't care about a pocket knife, I'll just buy the pocket knife on the shelf because it's fine. I just need one right now, and I don't need to research it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I was just
I
found an opportunity to throw a smart comment in there.
You were doing what you were supposed to do as part of the triumvirate that is this show. And
100%.
And I shot back across the bow, but you were also right. And it gave me a point to articulate, like, there are times when it matters and times where it doesn't. You might not deep dive every single kind of salt at the grocery store and why you might buy a different kind of salt. You might just need to buy some salt sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's totally content like that. Like those Disney movies were like that. I watched No Taste Like Home with Anthony from the Fab Five, and that's one of those shows I don't need to know anymore. I enjoyed the thing. I watched the thing. I'm not going on a forum to read about the making of the thing because Anthony is a chef. He tied in sort of like genealogy and wove in food. So like I grew up in Texas, but it was a German family and we ate lots of these kind of foods. So now we're going to travel to Germany and learn more about our heritage. And this is where the food and the thing and this is how people at my family's ancestry, their economic class would have eaten. And so like it's just a fun spin on the genealogy and cooking thing. Like I don't need to know any more about it. If you're into that kind of thing, you can watch that. And then there's like Daredevil, who got it's not rebooted, who got picked up from the Netflix show 4 episodes in, and it's so freaking good. And so that's a thing where I'm like, I want to go. Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio is back as Kingpin. They've got some other characters back. It's so good. So now I want to I know the comic book nerds are talking about the little Easter eggs in it, and I want to know what I missed and what do those things mean. And so like way different than the Disney shows or the No Taste Like Home. Just I do want to deep dive that. I just don't want to hear the people say it's the worst Marvel show ever, the most flawless, Citizen Kane 2001 A Space Odyssey Marvel show ever.
Yeah, it's like you want to go in and you want to have these fun discussions, and there's just way too much noise out there that's keeping you from being able to do that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Or
the noise.
Who has really good discussions? Our friends in Odd Pods Media, and you're going to get to hear a little more about their show over this quick break. Words are fun.
If you're into comedy, game shows, and improv, you should come check out BFYTW. We are an adult British-inspired comedy panel show. New episodes release every Thursday through your favorite podcast player or bfytwpod.com. We're also a founding member of the Odd Pods Media Network and would love for you to join us for some laughs.
All right, so kind of related to that, I ran into the same issue with movies in the world of fiction novels.
Ooh.
And so like I started one of the recent novels by Stephen King is called Holly, and I started it last summer, and life got busy, and I didn't finish it before I had to give it back to the library because it was a popular book and they wouldn't let me renew it. And so I just recently got it back from the library and just finished it. But while I was trying to pick back up into it, I wanted to read just a simple little synopsis of a couple of the not quite as major characters, just to remind me of who these people are and how they fit. Because a Stephen King novel often is very windy and intertwiny, and you're following multiple stories at once, and you need to wait for the moments when they line up. And so I went in just to get a couple character synopsises of some folks, and immediately got bombarded by political discourse over whether or not this was a good book, because it came out of COVID-19, and so like the book setting is in like 2020, and everybody is amazed with COVID-19 data in the book as we were in 2020, right? And so that setting, it made sense. But there were people who didn't like it, people who did like it, and the opinions were all over the map, and it colored their entire opinion on the book itself, which I thought it was a wonderful book. And I thought the COVID stuff was perfectly appropriate. And like I didn't even give two thoughts about it. Like, of course, this is what these people are thinking about. It was 2020. It's what we all were thinking about, right?
Sure.
But it didn't even cross my mind that this would be an issue until I started just simply trying to get some information on some of the less main characters in the book. And it was hard to find because everybody wanted to talk about the politics of the book. And that annoyed me.
It's,
So
I don't want to get too serious, but even opening up what I'm about to say sort of begs that you pick at it, and we don't have to because we never do. Although there are some listeners who really have wanted us to get political for a very long time.
yeah.
But I'm struggling these days when I just scroll through my feed, and maybe that's part of the problem. So I hear that as my first point. But there are people who are like, it's all on fire. This is a dystopia. We're living in idiocracy. I'm moving to another continent. And then people who are like, finally, everything's finally getting fixed. It's all better now. Thank the Lord, our hero, and they're bowing at the feet of our new. And I'm just like, yeah, as has always been told to me, does the truth lie somewhere in the middle? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's bad for a lot of people, and I get it, and job loss and very serious things. And if all you subscribe to is the sky is falling stuff, it seems to me that that's what you're going to start repeating and echoing. And if all you're subscribing to is that these idiots don't get it, it's never been better, look at the numbers stuff, then we've talked about echo chambers before. I try to like take a little bit of both as not truth, but just as what are the topics that are being discussed. I'll go try to find a neutral place. And then at some point, how much do I have to participate? It's too much for me to see everybody just feels mad and like divisive. And I'm just like, I just want to teach my kid to ride bikes and go fishing and take my son to get his haircut at Hammer and Nails and then take him to breakfast and have a good day and listen to some new music by Susto. And that's just what I'm going to do. This feels too serious out here. You guys feel?
So is what
that
you're
way?
saying, you only see people giving America 1-star or 5-star reviews?
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I see people that are like, this is really affecting my mental health, and I can't. And it's like, just go away from it. Then, like, don't plug in.
You don't have to do this to yourself. Like, if you
stop
can't
listening.
Yeah.
Like, I'm unfriending I'm unfollowing. I'm purging my friends list.
Okay.
Really, like, I'm off of social media. I'm purging my friends list. Like, you're gonna discount entire relationships because you disagree on you're probably 1 or 2 degrees off from each other politically. This goes back to one of the books that I first mentioned when we started this whole podcast, which was, I think it's a Malcolm Gladwell book or something. It was what our buddy Simon was talking about, which basically states that most of us in society who claim to be clear over here or clear over here are probably actually on a linear spectrum, just a few clicks off from one another in probably just 1 or 2 areas.
Yeah.
But because we've labeled ourselves clear out here, I don't know. It sounds very hippie of me to be like, can't we all just get along? But it's too much right now. And I'm choosing to just not participate because, just like the movie example, nobody's going to Facebook for a discussion. Nobody's going to Facebook to learn something or to change their perspective.
Exactly. And it's you're allowed to make your own grown-up decision to unplug from it all. Like, that is a perfectly fine, because the reason why it's important to remind people of that is because the moment they start saying what you just said, there's a billion people on both sides who then look at you and say you're part of the problem because you don't care.
You're not leaning into the discussion.
Yeah, and so you really have to just say, I'm going to make my own adult decision here, and I don't care what your opinion of me is, and I'm going to move on with my life now. Like
And when
that's
I've recharged from that and come to some conclusions on some things, or really feel like I've like rationalized my stance or view on some things, then I might come back with a newfound energy and perspective, or willingness to be more open and less closed off, because that's where all the angry discussion got me before. It got me in a corner. And what do people do in a corner? They just lash out. So now I've had some time. Now I can re-enter the discussion from a thoughtful place, and here's where I think I am on this, maybe, but I'm open. You tell me where I'm wrong.
Well,
Anyway.
there's some things that are always true. And I do think we should revere expertise. That should matter. We should want the best information from the most capable and wise and experienced people. That could beg the question, whose expertise? Uh, if you're tuning into a station that only says what you agree with or only says what you disagree with, that's on 24/7, I think we're all grown up to enough to know that there's plenty of options in the middle that you're going to read sometimes that you're going to go, yeah, okay, that makes sense with what I believe. And sometimes it'll be like, that feels like a little bit of an attack. But sometimes that's what you need to see. So
Mhm.
there's and people will often say, well, I just don't know where to go to get good information. I think we all know there's plenty of options. But it's probably not the one that you nod along to 99% of the time that you watch. So maybe if you're going to turn something off or tune something out, make it the one that only agrees with what you believe and just try some other stuff. And I think that helps because then it doesn't feel so much like the best of times or the worst of times. You get more information
Yeah.
than you would. So look to experts. Look to experts that aren't just on your preferred place of news. And if you feel offended or hurt by something, examine why. Is it because you just don't like it? Is it because it's a lie? If you're saying it's a lie, is it really a lie or is it just because you don't like it? And I think as long as people are doing a little bit of self-reflection and not just accepting everything from one place, they're going to get to the truth. But that feels hard and complicated.
Here's an exercise I've done over the last couple of weeks. To your point, Dylan. And I'm sorry, and then we'll get back to silly nonsense. But maybe this is good. Maybe this is where people have been wanting us to go. I don't know. This is just where we're going, so we're going with it. There are some popular figures in society right now that we're supposed to hate, that are making a lot of headline, and they're ruining our country. They're bad for the world. They're bad for society. There are photoshopped memes of them. Um, on all sides. On all sides, there are people that we're supposed to not like. And then you watch an interview, a long form interview with that person that we're all supposed to not like, right? Because they're the worst. And that person sits down and talks to the interviewer, and I go, they seem like a level headed, pretty nice for the most part. Even some of their points or actions I disagree with, they approached those actions thoughtfully. They don't seem like the crazy photoshopped meme person that I thought they were supposed to be based on what the world is telling me. And this is true for people on all sides of the political fence and people that aren't even on the political fence. Business leaders, thought leaders, like this person's bad. This person's bad. And then you listen to them talk and you're like, I disagree with some of what they had to say, but they're a person I could see myself hanging out with and asking more questions to because they seem to approach things pretty thoughtfully. And I go, okay, so even on that one person, of which there are many examples, there's probably a truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think there's very few, and they are out there. But in my experience and all these interviews I've been watching and discussions, and they're not like colored in any way or thoughtfully edited to make it sound like one thing or the other, I'm like, yeah, I don't think there's very many malicious, evil, divisive um, people out there that are just trying to watch the world burn. I think for the most part, people are trying their best. They're in positions of power. Some try to take that responsibility thoughtfully. and try to do their best. Very few are like, I'm going to weaponize this, manipulate, claw, fight, steal, cheat my way to the top. That's been my observation.
Yeah, I do agree with you that long form content, if it's a search for truth that you're looking for, long form content tends to be, in my opinion, a better thing to seek out than 30-second snippets from a talking head talking about the person. So
with a funny and catchy shareable meme that like
right.
really says nothing, but all I do is see a lot of those in my algorithm and think, well, they must be bad because I've seen them photoshopped with fire behind them a lot.
Right. And here's the pithy sentence that I want ingrained into your head so that then you can tell other people. Like it. So there is that. I think the comedians are really good at seeing people for people, seeing them as people instead of
that's a good
whatever
good
else they are. Like it, for some reason, like that community has a different kind of perspective on things. And in part, I say that because some of them are really hard to nail down politically where they land. The moment you think they're conservative, they say this other thing at that interview. And you're like, well, now I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that going on. Bill Burr has been a recent example that has popped up on both sides of the political arguments. And but then like you have some of the more long form podcasts from comedians and the like, and we talked about it. I had mentioned it earlier that if you want lighthearted look from both sides of a political spectrum, and if you want a good example of how two people who vehemently disagree with one another politically still getting along and having fun in a conversation doing it, Charlemagne the God and what's his name? And Andrew Schultz.
Yeah.
They have a podcast together. And for anybody who knows either one of them, know that the other one is the opposite. And like they get together and have fun and laugh and make jokes around serious topics of which they very much disagree on pretty much everything. But they're a good example that you can still get along with each other and you can still see people as people, even when they're on the other side of the opinion. We've talked about that since the very beginning of this podcast, that the ability to have just normal conversations with people and not come out of it hating them is something that we've lost.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very valuable for all of us to be able to have disagreements and friendships at the same time with the same people.
That reminds me, we need a guest soon. So tag the person that you want us to have on the show next. It's been a minute. I think Dylan told me the other day, like, bro, do you realize it's been like 30 episodes since we've had a guest? And our guest episodes do the best numbers. So we definitely need a guest again before I forget.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important that which we've talked about, to your point, Kendall, since the beginning, we've tried to stress being able to have a conversation. And what you said earlier, Corey, about leaving social media, sometimes the anonymity gives people have more visceral reactions to things because they're on a keyboard somewhere.
For sure.
So stepping away from social media is always reasonable. And I don't want that part of our discussion to seem like we're saying ignore what's happening. If you feel strongly about things, because you can always get off social media, but still do something and go to a town hall or call a representative or email them or write them or start a petition or go to a peaceful protest or whatever. So there's always other things you can do if you feel strongly enough about something one way or the other. But if you're not able to have those kinds of conversations, that's when it makes sense to step away from social media to be able to do something more productive, whether it pertains to the thing you care about that you see happening or not, whether it's something to help you mentally reset and then come back and engage, or engage it in a different way when it feels like you're only looking at 1 or 5 stars. So I don't want anyone to hear they're like, oh, they're just saying both sides are equally bad and just walk away and don't do anything. If you that I want to be clear, that's not what we're saying. That it's like it's just walk away from it and you shouldn't care and get over it.
I also fully
Some people,
appreciate
it
that
would
we're
be okay if somebody walked away and said, "I don't care about politics." I'm not upset with that person. I completely understand. That's a perfectly valid way to live your life. I'm not
Yeah, and I agree. But we're not saying no one should. Everyone should walk
exactly.
away and
We're not saying
care.
no one should. We're not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
I also appreciate that my perspective and observation is just a few months into a new term, and this has been the case since the beginning of our political process. That everybody's mad and really unhappy. Half of society is mad that it didn't go their way, and so everybody's kind of extra. And then over time, while they still are like, yeah, he's the worst, they're like quieter, and then it's going to reset again in 4 years, and so that's all part of what I'm observing too. I just challenge anyone who's been like, this is all too much. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. Everything's on fire. I just imagine that it's spring. I imagine that if you go sit with a packed lunch by a creek somewhere for 2 hours, that you won't feel like things are better. I think sometimes we just need to unplug and get away from it. And maybe that's just me projecting, but that's my take. So we just need to get along and love each other. Everything is fine and happy and good.
Hey, for anyone curious, Straight Arrow News is a wonderful app that I use to get my news. That's not obviously a paid thing because we don't do that. But Straight Arrow News. I would endorse.
All right, there you go. Hey, do you guys want to hear a way in which the world is falling apart? I just watched a documentary that Dylan had already talked about, but seriously, by now the shopping conspiracy on Netflix is about consumerism. So to move it slightly off of politics,
Yeah.
But there's stuff that gets thrown out. There's Disney movies, and then there's stuff that is like trying to convey a really deeper meaning and hopefully get people to take action. And that's documentaries for you. And people like to hate on documentaries because they're like, yeah, you could get like a really close look at anything and see how broken it is. But I will just say, without being hyperbolic, that I don't remember the last time I was so impacted by a documentary to the degree that I'm asking everyone in my family to watch it so that, and this is the important thing that we just discussed, so that after they watch it, we can sit down as a family and have a discussion about how it impacted them and how we might make some changes in our household. Not go around to the town square with picket signs and tell everybody why they need to do it, just for the five of us. Based on what you saw, is there anything you would like to change about the way we consume products? Yes or no? And if so, great. And if not, great. And I think that the producers of that documentary would be thrilled to know that that's the impact that it had on me. It's crazy to think about. It did a really good job, Dylan, like you said, of not being like, so can you believe? It's just like, this is the harsh reality of what's going on with some really practical steps at the end about what you might do differently. And it was just like, here it is. It's not like doom and gloom. It is a little, but what do I mean when I not like bang you, not hit you over the head with it? Like, it's just like, these are the facts. This is what's happening. Do something about it or don't, but this is what's happening.
Yeah. I think to level set, it does feel heavy watching it.
Heavy,
but they do
the subject matter, yes.
But they do a really good job at the people talking feel very human and understand their part and what they're talking about. So you don't feel talked down to. You feel like somebody's, in fact, it's almost the opposite. Here's all the mistakes that I made in contributing to this problem and what I was learning. So it's presented in a way that you don't feel talked down to. And then at the end, they lift it up hard and fast as like, here's some really quick things you can think about that
yeah.
redeems a lot of the heaviness that you felt by throughout to get to the end. So, and I think if nothing else, whether there's a family discussion, which is great, or if somebody does want to go put up a sign in their town city center and protest, fine, peacefully, fine. But the point with a lot of that stuff is like it's good to just learn more about how our world works and just have something to think about when you hear about whatever its subject matter is. It's like it's better to just learn more and know more and understand the world a little bit better, for better or worse, when there's good stuff or bad stuff. And that's essentially like part of what I love about history is like you can't cherry pick the stories that feel good and ignore the stuff that you should be learning from. Like you need to ingest it all and sit with it all and learn what's important and where we came from and help that inform where things could go. So I think this feels very similar. Like even if you take no immediate action, I think you'd be glad that you at least watched it and have a little bit different perspective.
Well, just one final plug for it, and maybe just this will be impactful because I've never considered myself to be like an environmental activist or like sustainability, you guys, the ozone and the ice caps and the polar bear. I've never been that type of person. I would say that this documentary didn't make me that type of person, but it raised this for me that was impactful. Where is away? When we say we're throwing it away, where is away? Where is that? Geographically, where is away? And this taught me that there really is no away. Even a lot of the products that are showing recycle icons to make you think that that product does a better job than other companies of doing it, some of those aren't doing anything different than the companies who don't show those labels. And it's just an awareness thing. And I went, oh, wow, that lands. I understand that in a new way in fast fashion. Uh, there's some industries that are especially bad contributors to this issue. But anyway, it was crazy good. Also, Alone Australia. You guys know I love Alone. Alone Australia came out a year or
That
two
sounds
ago.
terrifying.
Yeah. Australia has a lot of scary bugs and critters, but I'm getting my Alone fix
Yeah.
through Alone Australia. And then Formula One started back up. In Australia was the first race. China was the second race this past weekend. I'm behind. You guys will appreciate how much of a nerd I am. Max secured the championship at the end of last season, 2 races before the season was over. So I kind of stopped watching after the championship was secured because the implications were less. So I missed the last 2 races of last season because it was already decided. But because I'm like my Netflix bar completion bar has to be fully read and I have to follow the story, I can't watch the first 2 races of this season until I finish the last 2 races of last season. It's all on the DVR. I just need time to sit and do it. So I'm excited to get back into Formula One. What I'm hearing, I don't have any spoilers, but what I'm hearing is that it doesn't look like Max is going to dominate all season this season like he did last season, which makes it more fun. It's like the Patriots are always winning in the NFL. And Lewis Hamilton, who is tied for the most championships of all time with Michael Schumacher, is on a completely new team. He went from Mercedes to Ferrari, so I'm really interested to see how that cultural shock is going. Ferrari is one of those teams that has a lot of gravitas and like it means something to race for Ferrari, this like staple of auto racing, and he's going there. So how has that affected him? What does the car look like? I'm so excited to get into it. So that's kind of what I'm streaming. If you haven't watched Paradise on Hulu, go do that right now. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. The first season is incredible. You will know if you want to watch it by the pilot alone. And then I just finished the finale of season 2 of Severance, mentioned earlier in today's show. Oh my gosh, so good. Do yourself a favor, watch Severance. That's on Apple TV Plus.
Fantastic.
What you
I'm
watching, Kendall?
not watching anything new. We're still in Reacher, the third season now of Reacher, and so that's fun. We watch that when we can. Still watching sports. a lot of basketball here recently, and started a new mystery novel. This one by Dean Koontz. It's actually not new; it's an old one, an old series called Odd Thomas, which I'm enjoying. About halfway through it, and it's a much simpler read than Stephen King's Holly, or even most of Dean Koontz stuff. It's a simpler read than even that. So you're only
Sweet.
following one storyline. I like it. It's funny. It's Dean Koontz is known for horror thriller
Right.
kind of stuff and really weird and twisted kind of things. This one is, I mean, it's still weird, but it's lighthearted and funny. And Odd Thomas, the main character, it's narrated from him, from his perspective, and he's funny. It's just there's this ongoing thing. Odd Thomas, you find out very early. I'm not spoiling anything. Has this kind of like superpower ish kind of thing where he can talk to dead people and see dead people who have passed. One of his best friends in the book is Elvis Presley himself. So
Nice.
it's
That's a fun premise.
it is a fun little premise.
I love that.
He's hauling Elvis Presley around and solving a case. It's fun.
Sweet. Well, you know what else is fun? Like you said, sports are on. We're now in the Sweet 16. And when I think of the Sweet 16, I think that's what I'm going to call our listeners when we hit that number. How's that for an outro? You guys have been fun. Thanks for letting us catch up. Sorry we got a little too serious there. Don't worry, it won't happen again for another 4 episodes. But it was fun hanging out. Thank you to Artiest Man, our sponsor, for your partnership. We really appreciate it. You can get your Artiest Man products right now. Yes, right now, by going to artiestman.com. That's ARTIUSMAN.com. Fill your cart with amazing men's grooming products. I just got myself another round of beard balm today, so I'm super excited to dig into that. It smells amazing. And use that promo code. You'll get 25% off if it's your first time ordering from them. If it's your second, third, or fourth time ordering from them, that's still fine. It still helps us. It still helps them. And you're going to get some incredible products. So use promo code The Middle at checkout if it is your first time to get that 25% off. And we will see you guys next week on From the Middle. Bye.